Hello for the 51st Berlin Real Estate talk. Today our topic is the rental market in Berlin, Germany, which has been always discussed over there in the media. And this webinar is for everyone who owns a property in Berlin or who is looking to buy one and then to rent it out. And thank you, Janis, for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Janis is the director of Black Label Property Management, and he manages over 1,500 apartments with his team of more than 12 people. So please stay here online. You will get a lot of responses to your questions. Hello everybody, today to our 51st Berlin Real Estate talk. Our expert today is Janis Sakris. Janis, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Today, the whole session will be in English, of course, because we are addressing this especially for our English audience, or English clients, English landlords, English tenants, English people who are looking to rent or to let an apartment here in Berlin, Germany. And Janis, he's my colleague. He's the director of Black Label Property Management in Berlin. You are in the company since 2017, is this correct?
17, yeah, that's correct.
Yes. And you are the director since 2020?
Yes, end of 2020,
yeah,
took over.
And you manage over 1,500 units in Berlin and Leipzig. And today we have got so many questions from you guys. I think we have broken the record. If my colleague Nick is not mistaken, I think we had more than 200 people registered for this chat today. And for those of you who have not been in these chats before or previously, how do we operate? First of all, you can ask any question during this little webinar. We can't hear you, we can't see you, but we of course can see your questions. And if there is anything you are missing in this during this 1 hour webinar, you can see the recorded session next week Tuesday. We will launch that recorded session on YouTube, and you of course can go through all the questions, all the answers we've responded to. If there are any further questions, you of course always can contact Janis or myself through our social media channels or on websites. You can visit him in his office. No, Janis?
Yeah, of course.
You're
anytime.
Happy for many people visiting you. You have a rented apartment. Can I rent an apartment? No, of course. You can find us on our different websites, which is Black Label Property Management and of course blacklabelproperties.com. Janis, you are Greek by origin?
Yes, I was born and raised in Greece, and then at some point in 2013 I decided to chase my luck in Germany, so I end up here. And I think 2017 was the time when we met and you gave me a chance there, and now 6 years down the road we're partners and yeah, working together.
And Janis you're a perfect example for people coming to Germany. It was very hard for you to find an apartment to rent when you came to Berlin, or was it easier when you came to Berlin?
Wasn't easy at all. I mean, in the beginning was, I mean, someone could say it was a catastrophe. It was so difficult to find an apartment, yeah, especially when someone comes for the first time to live from another country. Even if I come from an EU country, it was also extremely difficult. You have to sort out so many things in advance. Finding a job, have a steady income, be able to get all the documents that the landlords ask for so that they can run the background check and everything. And then you also need a lot of luck, probably some contacts, that's also helpful. And then slowly you start getting some answers, going to some viewings. I remember starting in a WG, also with flat share, yes, exactly. And then slowly chances start to come up, and then I think I got my first apartment, proper rental agreement in 2016 or something like that. So at least 3-4 years after I moved into Germany. And since then, I think it's even more harder right now. It's insane.
What do you recommend? I mean, we have a lot of questions from you guys. So just maybe to address the situation of a tenant who maybe doesn't speak German, or at least his German is not as good as a native German speaker. What would you suggest for people looking to rent an apartment? What should they do?
First of all, they need to decide what they need, what they want. So set up the goal, what kind of apartment they want to find in which areas. Set up a very nice, not very long application form with the necessary documents such as proof of their income, the Schufa, if they can get one, if they are a couple of months at least in Germany already, and not write too many things, make it as clear as possible, and start sending the applications to whatever kind of listing they find. Have a lot of patience and never give up. At some point, something will happen and they will have some luck and they will find something. It's just a matter, it's a game of patience. You need to have patience, or you need to have so much money that you can rent out whatever you want. So for an affordable apartment, where most of people lie right now, they need to have a lot of patience.
Okay. What do you recommend if people don't have the time to wait 1 year or 2 years to find the right apartment? What should they do?
I don't have an answer on that. I'm sorry. I mean, if I had one, that would be great for a lot of people, but honestly, there is no answers. There is no solution on that. Patience, send as many applications as possible. Contact anyone you may know. You do not know from where you can get some information which will help you find an apartment. Chances are over there, and someone just need to take the time and try to reach them.
I mean, you're managing quite a few apartments now in Berlin for different kind of landlords. Mostly the landlords are private owners.
I would say is round about 50-50 at the moment.
Okay.
So from the 1,500 units that we're managing, we have quite a few that are condominiums, so we do not count them as rental units. But then for everything that is rented out and we manage it, I would say round about 400 units we have in houses, so whole blocks, and then the rest are independent landlords who have 1 or 2 units in different buildings. And yeah, we help them to manage the properties. We assist the tenant also, anything that he needs.
What is the situation for the landlords at the moment? What do you see?
In terms of what do you mean?
The rental market.
Rental market is, I would say, quite good. I mean, we experienced the past few years a boom on the rent, so rents were increasing so rapidly, even the market couldn't keep up with that. Right now, even though the rate is a bit slower, so they do not increase that quickly anymore, the market is really, really strong, especially for affordable apartments. Is insane. We have listings which stay live for minutes, and then we have 100, 150, 200 applications in the first 5 minutes, so we have to stop everything in order to be able to check everything, start inviting people for viewings and so on and so forth. Then it's different on the price segments. If we're talking about the luxury segment, the segment where the really expensive apartments are, the market exists, but it's not that strong in terms of inquiries from tenants. There are not so many people being able to afford this kind of apartments.
What is your luxury segment? Maybe for all these listeners today, what is luxury? What is affordable? Can you just put some numbers around it?
In terms of prices, you mean?
Yeah.
So an affordable apartment right now in today's market would be anything that costs between 10 and 17 euros per square meter. I know the span there is really large, but it depends on the areas, it depends on the building, if it's a new build, if it's an old building, what the situation of the building is, of the apartment, if it's renovated or not. I mean, there are too many things that we need to consider. Then we have the brand new apartments, so brand new buildings, where we have prices between 17 and 23, 24 euros per square meter. Anything above that starts to become some more luxurious I mean, city center, brand new apartments with special materials, if you like, maybe into the apartment. Things that make an apartment more luxurious. That's it. And prices we have prices up to 35 euros per square meter.
What are the apartments who are really expensive in terms of price per square meter? Are they the smaller apartments or the family apartments? What is really interesting for the landlords?
So in terms of price per square meter, the smaller the apartment it is, the more money per square meter you can ask for. If we're talking for a luxurious apartment that is 40 square meters and you can ask, let's say, 32 euros per square meter, that would be around about 1,200, 1,300 euros per month. If you have an apartment which is 120 square meters and you ask for 30 euros per square meter, the price difference is enormous. Someone who can afford to give 4,000 euros per month net rent can also afford to buy such an apartment. Maybe not in the exact same price, but with a bit more money, he can afford to buy one. So that's why you have also these differences on the inquiries you're getting on the luxurious segment.
Okay.
So the smaller the apartment it is, the higher you can push the price. We're talking about new builds, luxurious segment apartments. Yeah.
So we have a lot of question on the regulation in Berlin.
Yeah.
How do you see as a practitioner and someone who's managing so many units with your team? I think we are now having 13 people.
We are 12.
12.
Yeah.
Okay. 12 people in the team. So what do you see? What's happening to the regulation? What kind of effects does it have for you as a director of that company?
Well, it definitely makes our lives a lot harder. That's for sure. We have a lot of clients, we manage units from a lot of independent landlords who are not German speakers, who have no idea or had no experience before how the market works. And so the first thing that we have to do is educate the landlords on what the situation is, what they are dealing with, what they will have to deal with about all these regulations, so that we can assist them to make the proper decisions for them and be able to have a good relationship and work together better. All these regulations are there for a reason. I completely understand that. I can understand what the economic situation of the people, especially in Berlin, is, and how difficult it is, especially these days. But these regulations make our job hard in terms of setting up an agreement between the tenant and the landlord, so that everyone is happy with it. We do not have issues, and in the end of the day, the landlord should get his money, the tenant has a proper home to live. And this kind of connection, in a lot of cases, has been somehow, I wouldn't say corrupted, but it doesn't work properly because of the regulations. It makes lives for everyone involved into this relationship harder, or it can make it harder. You have the regulations where the rent needs to be regulated, so lowered.
Maybe you just can say something for these people who don't know the rental regulation in Berlin, who have a very tough rental regulated market.
Yes.
What's the average rent under the regulation?
The average rent,
Yes.
Something between 8 euros per square meter right now, maybe a bit lower.
Yeah. And what's the market rent?
It depends. I mean, it
In
depends
average.
on.
What's the market rent in average?
Right now?
Yeah.
17, 18.
So it's like 50% less. Yeah. Or 100%.
Yeah.
So basically, you're talking about 500 euros net rent a month, 1,000 euros. That can make a big difference to many tenants, of course, and of course to the landlord. Because the landlord, if he doesn't know that the market is regulated, he is considering the market rent as his income.
Yes.
Then suddenly he realizes, oh, well, I just get 50% of the market rent, which means that my property is worth less.
Yeah.
And so that's a big topic. So for those of you guys who are looking to buy in Berlin and trying to become a landlord, it's a great market. We have the prices just went down in the past 12 to 18 months quite significantly in certain areas, but the rent is very, very strong. Of course, it's you just said 17, 18, 19
17,
euros.
18, yeah.
Yeah, but that's only counts for the new builds. Maybe that's another question for you, Yannis, in terms of new build and old build. So the regulation only applies for Altbau, old apartments.
Yep.
What happens for new builds? Is there any regulation on the rents?
No. So anything that was firstly used and rented out after October 2014 is excluded from any kind of rental regulations. Rental regulations in terms of price. There are other regulations in terms of how long the rental agreement needs to be and other things, but in terms of prices, it is excluded. A landlord can rent out such a unit for whatever price he wants, basically for the market price, what someone is willing to pay for it.
Okay.
That's not an issue at all. Anything that was built before is regulated, and then things start to be complicated. You have to see a number of factors. You have to check the boxes to come up with the actual price that you can do.
So maybe just for you guys as investors to be aware of, if you buy an old apartment, there's also another topic. Either you have a sitting tenant. So a sitting tenant means that there is an existing tenant in your apartment who might only pay 5 euros a square meter, 6 euros. And that's why the apartments are so much cheaper. So of course you pay less for these apartments than if it's a new build, even if it would be in the same area, even in the same building. If you have an old apartment which is vacant compared to the other one which is tenanted, the tenanted is always cheaper than the vacant apartment, because on the tenanted you cannot just claim self-usage, you just cannot terminate the rental contract, of course, because you have to go through a certain process. Usually you have to settle with the tenant, and that might be very expensive, and you're not sure if you actually will achieve a settlement. So this is another topic. Yannis, I would like to go through a couple of these questions. I think we had never so many questions in our chat than today, and I would like to start with a question from the landlords. You of course have sent us a couple of German questions. I would like to translate that a little bit. So just starting with the first question. The first question is the contract that runs on a certain period of time, taxable advantages or disadvantages in terms of VAT. So first of all, Yannis and myself, we are not a tax advisor nor a lawyer. We just can share you our experience. And our experience, Yannis, please correct me if I'm wrong on the tax topic, is 3 months. Is this correct? I think 3 months is the minimum duration.
Yeah, so any rental that has a duration under 3 months is considered a very short-term rental, and it falls under the regulations for Airbnb or Ferienwohnungen, as we tell them there.
Yeah. Holiday homes,
Holiday homes, yes, exactly. So in that situation, there are a lot of other regulations that someone needs to consider, and of course, tax obligation there is different of a normal apartment. Anything that is more than 3 months, regardless of whether it is limited or unlimited or whatever the duration is, there are no specific implications regarding any taxes. There's a standard taxes, income taxes from the rent, and if anything else, I'm not aware of, but no VAT is involved there, as long as is residential rental.
Yeah.
If it's commercial, then it's a completely different story.
So I hope we could answer your question there, so in the way that you understand what you need to do. The next question is agents who are working for tenants. Big topic. Do you want to start with your answer?
I can tell you that they exist, and they are called relocation managers at the moment.
Yeah.
And they're doing exactly that. They're looking apartments for potential tenants.
Yeah. So that's relocation management. Just to let you know, if someone instructs black label property management to rent out their apartment and to find a tenant, then of course Janus is not charging a fee from the tenants, the prospective tenants, of course, because that's not correct. In the German law that's prohibited, so we cannot charge the tenants a finder fee, as we say, or apartment finder fee. So you would always, if you rent an apartment from Janus, it's going to be always free of any cost for the tenants, of course. But as you said, relocation manager, that's a different contract which exists, and there are a lot of agents doing this now. But you have to be quite careful what kind of fees are you paying. And my advice is always only pay a fee once they have secured the property, not a monthly fee, because I think it's a big opportunity for a lot of black sheeps as well to profit from the misery of a lot of people who are looking to find an apartment. So yeah, just be careful on that one. Rented apartment, short-term renting and letting the apartment furnished. Maybe because I think the short-term letting you already mentioned, it's below 3 months.
That's a very short letting.
And then we have other contracts, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months.
Yes.
Is it still considered to be short-term?
Yes, but not in the same section as the very short one. So any rentals that more than 3 months and up to 12 months can be characterized as short-term rentals. But there are no different regulations in terms of, if you compare that with the unlimited ones, in terms of the taxation or the prices and so on and so forth. The same things more or less apply. The main difference is the short-term letting up to 12, so from 3 months up to 12 months has certain things that the landlord needs to be aware of, certain risks that he needs to be aware of on how to proceed with that.
Okay. We have another question. I think that's something from a tenant. How do you calculate the additional cost for a furnished apartment?
Okay.
Yeah.
So for basically for the furniture. So the furniture can be a premium for the furniture can be added on top of the net rent. And well, the basic rule is that you get the initial investment to buy the furniture, the sum of it, and then you can charge a premium of 8% of this initial investment per year. So, for example, for a 10,000 euro investment on furniture, you can add something between 65 to 70 euros per month on top of the net rent for the furniture.
Okay. Do you know when there will be the new rent regulation, the new, we call that Mietspiegel, the new average rent? Do you know?
So we expect a new table in early summer 2024.
Yeah.
A date we do not have yet, but it should be somewhere May, June, somewhere like that.
I would like to jump a little bit on the questions because we have a lot of questions on the kitchen, for instance. Maybe just a quick respond on the kitchen. Should rent out your apartment with a kitchen? And should you explicitly name the kitchen in the rental contract? There are different arguments, pro and cons. Maybe just quickly respond, and Janus, please correct me if I'm wrong. So one opportunity for you as a landlord is to rent out the apartment including the kitchen, but you will not register the kitchen in the contract, which has the advantage that if something breaks in the kitchen, you don't have to fix it because the kitchen is not part of the rental contract. The negative thing is, of course, that you cannot charge additional rent for the kitchen because the kitchen is a quality and it adds value for the tenant, so you can charge extra for the kitchen. But that's, I think, a topic you need to contact Janus directly on a one-by-one call. The next question would be, do you know approximately how many percentage of the Berlin apartments are freehold ownership, so our condominiums are owned by people? I actually don't have the number here. Do you have a number?
An actual number I do not have, but I'm pretty sure that the difference is like 30-70. 30 are landlords, they live there, and 70 would be tenants.
Yes, I think we always had something around 80-20, maybe 85-15 even. So Berlin was always a city that has been dominated by tenants, not by landlords. Sorry, by tenants, not by owners. I think that's a big number. So we have the next legal question. We of course need to speak to a lawyer on this. When should be a reform on the rental market? We don't know when that might happen. We don't know that yet. Do you know anything on that?
The only thing I know is that in the Koalitionsvertrag, so in the contract of the government's arrangement there, they said that they would like to push a reform. The main things they said is that they want to have a new Mietspiegel in 2025. It comes a bit sooner than expected. And they said that they would like to change the maximum amount in percentage on how much a landlord is allowed to increase the rent from 15 to 11%. But nothing new came from that. I mean, we do not have any updates if it will happen or not.
So we have another question. A few days ago in the local paper here, Tagesspiegel of Berlin, there was a piece that mentioned that the existing rents went up by 12%. How is this possible if the existing rents are regulated after the rental table, and that should not have been increased more than 5%? So this is a great question. Thank you for that. Maybe if I could jump on that answer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
So first of all, you're completely right. It's not possible to increase rent by 12% year on year. There are certain rules and regulation. I think it's only 3% year on year you can increase the rent if it's not a inflation index rent, or is it 5% at the moment in Berlin?
Sorry, I didn't understand the word.
In Berlin you can increase the rents every year on year, by maximum 3 or 5% per year.
Are we talking about new builds or existing?
No, existing.
Existing, you're allowed to increase the rent every 15 months.
Yes.
Up to 15%.
Yeah.
That's the maximum what the law dictates, but not more than 15% in 3 years' time.
Yeah.
It's extremely complicated to explain how all this thing works. If someone has a specific question, please feel free to send me an email. I will be more than happy to answer.
But the question is still very good. So you can see already that between us, we're discussing this. But in general terms, you're right. You cannot increase the rent just by 12% from one year to the other. If not major exceptions, there are always exceptions, but in general, that's not possible. The main reason, I think, what the newspaper, I haven't read the article, but I'm pretty sure they also include the rents for new builds. They're not only regulated apartments, which have been completed before 2014. So there is still a certain percentage in Berlin. And of course, on the new builds, the rents went up easily 5, 7, 6, 8%.
Yeah.
From last year to this year.
Sure.
Absolutely. So I think but I think 12% is still too high. So good question. Yeah.
It can be done also under the Mietspiegel if you have a very old contract, which is very
this is not
low.
the normal case. So in average, I don't think that's possible.
No, I think they added also the new. They considered the new builds. That's why.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for that one. So why is the actual rent table showing between 6 to 7 euro per square meter in average, even if it's in gray locations of Berlin, like Rosenthaler Vorstadt? Yeah, well, you should ask your local politician on that, because especially to talk to your local Mieterverein, which is like an insurance company for tenants, a tenant association. And of course, the rents, if you do the real rents, if you do the market rents compared to the old rents, it's definitely much higher than 6 or 7 euros. But the way they're doing the rental table, and that's why we're having so big topics on that one, is they're not really using professional statistics. And have to be realistically, if you are on the rental market as a tenant, you know that there is nothing between 6 to 7 euro in that area of Berlin. Even the Mietspiegel might say that, so the rental table. But of course, it doesn't help you. It doesn't help you as someone who's looking for an apartment, and only the people are protected who are living already in an apartment, of course. Yeah, that's. So which points I have to check if I sign a new rental contract as a landlord? I mean, this is a question which we can talk about 2 hours, 3 hours. You should ask your lawyer. But Janis, maybe you can just make the two big topics?
So the easy answer here is check everything. Everything can be disputed anytime from anyone because they would like to. My suggestion is try to find a rental agreement which is certified, so to speak, from landlords associations. Speak with a lawyer who can advise you, and then you just need to be I mean, the main thing is what the plan is. What do you want to achieve with your apartment? According to that, you can then find out the proper rental agreement for you. We speak with a lawyer, speak with a property manager who knows the market, and they can assist you on deciding what needs to be checked.
Yeah, so basically I think you're fully right, Yanis. The other question is you also can contact his company where you can get advice, you can check the rental contracts, you are working closely with different lawyers, experts who are checking the rental contracts. And then of course always try to use a professional agency, not just do it by word of mouth and stuff, because this will always cause problems for you. Okay, I think we already covered the topic short-term rental. Then there's another one, the rental market. I think we already discovered about the potential of rent increases, which is limited in terms of the regulated rental market, but not on the new builds, right? On the new builds, you are pretty much free. You can do whatever you want. And that's the reason why there are still new builds being built, because the rent went up significantly in the past. And of course, interest went up again, so property prices went down, which is another question. Does it make sense to invest in the Berlin real estate market? Absolutely. I've not seen so many people contacting us to buy a buy-to-let apartment because prices are going down, rents are going up. What's better for a landlord than prices going down, rents are going up? We actually already can see that the prices are stabilizing, and there's already some pressure that prices will go up this year, because now interest is stable between 3 to 4%. At least we hope it's going to stay stable, but it's now affordable. And so if you buy a new build or if you buy a property that doesn't apply below the Berlin rental table, then absolutely it's a great investment. And of course you have to negotiate the price as a buyer, and you have to get a real price. You have to make sure that the property is in good condition, etc. But absolutely it will make sense to buy. And especially if you also want to invest into real estate. Many people are investing into the stock market, into other things. But if you want to invest into real estate, Berlin is a fantastic place to invest. And of course, the regulation we just covered, there are companies like BLP Management, there are lawyers who can protect you. And if you get professional advice before you buy, then you should be on the safe side. Then we have another one. What is the future of rental furnished apartments for overcoming rental law? Yanis, this is the question I've been waiting for. Do you want to respond on that?
Yeah. So there is no option to overcome the rental law unless it is a new build. That's the easy answer. Now, every case is different. We need to check what conditions, what exactly we're talking about. Furnishing the apartment to overcome the rental law doesn't exist as an option, as a standalone option. There are a lot more things that we need to consider along with the furnishing that may be able to put the landlord in a better situation rather than just renting out the property unlimited without furniture and under the rental laws.
Yeah. So I think the first answer I like the most. It's simply not working. So for all you guys looking to do the furnished let, short-term let in an Altbau, it's you always are in the hands of the tenant. If the tenant feels it's not okay, he can go to a lawyer and then he will be a sitting tenant. And sitting tenant means you will not get rid of the tenant, and then you have the problem. My advice is always to speak to the tenants, to make sure you select the right tenants, find a fair agreement, which is fair for the tenant and fair for you. And as long as you treat each other well, no one needs to take a lawyer, no one needs to cause a problem. But I think it's very important that you are fair to each other. I think communication is the key here to respect each other's situations here. Yeah. For the tenant, it's important that the landlord has a good feeling with you, because he doesn't want to have problems. He wants rental income. He wants to, to pay for his retirement, yeah, to save for his retirement. And for you, it's important to have a good landlord who takes care of the apartment, who doesn't increase the rent every second, and maybe if there's a problem, he helps you. Yeah, so that's I think that's the key. Yeah. So next, how can I, in locations where there is no rental average or rental table, how do I increase rent according to inflation, even if there are no comparable apartments? Great question. I think if there is no rental table, Janis, you simply can increase the rent. However, you do need comparable apartments. I don't know any other way. Do you know any other way?
Not really.
Yeah.
Unless there is a certain clause into the rental agreement which gives you the solution there how the rent can be increased in the future.
But if you have not an Index-Mietvertrag, as we say in German, then it's difficult for you to increase. You always can increase, but that's something you should talk to your tenant. And like I've said in my answer before, come to a solution here. So we have another one, joining as landlord at Ambassador project. Yeah. Well done. It's a great project in the city center of Berlin.
Good to have you. The first one is a very interesting one. If on a second tenancy from a new build, the rent price is bound to the price of the first rental. So, as we said before, anything that was first used and rented out after October 2024 is excluded of that, meaning that, let's say you have an apartment, the first tenancy started in 2015, for the market price at the time, 3 years down the road, the tenant moved out, you have a second tenancy, you can take the price, the new market price, which has nothing to do with the price the previous tenant was paying. There are, in any other case, there is some kind of connection between prices in first, second, or third tenancies. So yeah, that for that one, you will definitely need someone to give you an advice on how you can, what is allowed for you to do or not.
I have another one about what is the legal situation on Airbnb. Dennis, do you know the current legal situation? I mean, we don't do Airbnbs.
We do not do Airbnbs.
Yeah.
There are companies out there that they offer this option. I mean, if you do not do it yourself, I know it can be a bit expensive. From what I'm aware of, you're allowed to do Airbnb for less than 100 days every year, only if you have managed to acquire a special license from the city. Whether this is an option, you have to check with the city. I think it's extremely difficult at the moment because the current rent situation in Berlin and not having enough apartments for the citizens here. And this only applies for anything that has to do under 3 months, so under these 100 days of rentals. For anything else, you do not need any license, you do not need anything else. You just have the apartment, rent it out also for 6 months, 12 months, or whatever period you want.
So we have another 2 questions would like to respond to. Is there an opportunity as a tenant beside the minimum average rental period in your rental contract if you have lost your job or you need to change the city to find a different job to get rid of your rental contract? I think no. I think you have signed a minimum contract. So this is a binding contract. What you can do is you can speak to your landlord. At the moment, the rental market is very, very strong. So legally speaking, I think you have to accept the situation. But from a practitioner side of things, Janis, we just find a different tenant and that's it.
So I'm afraid the answer here is extremely complicated to give. So just to start with, there is no law saying whether setting up a minimum period where you have to be into the contract. There is no law that is saying that. Of course, whenever you sign such an agreement, you're bound to that, so it's legally binding somehow. From experience, I can tell you that it can happen. It happens sometimes, but not very often. And given the current situation and how easy someone can find an apartment in Berlin, if a tenant decides to get out of his contract earlier, there should be a very strong reason for that. So from the practitioner side, of course, the best way is to discuss with the tenant, with the landlord, figure out a way to get out of the contract as quickly and as easy as possible. Most of the cases, it doesn't even work for the landlords to chase the tenant for that.
So then another one. Here we have a landlord who would like to rent out his apartment or her apartment, but they might use that apartment after a few years themselves. A very typical question. Janis, how would you sort that out?
That also depends. So if there is a certain plan from the landlord side to move in either him or a relative of first degree into the apartment, so basically declare self-usage, and he knows and he's certain that this will happen, of course it's always better to sign a rental agreement which is limited for a certain period of time with a specific reason of self-usage after that. And that needs to be specified. The trick here is that when the time comes and the tenancy goes to an end, the tenant can go back to the landlord and ask if the situation changed for any reason. Now, if the situation changed and the landlord just say, yeah, you can have it for another 5 years because, yeah, it changed and we're not coming right now, then I'm afraid it can get complicated. If it didn't change, then the tenant needs to go out, and that's it.
Good. Thank you, Janis, for that one. So the rental freeze. We had the rent cap in Berlin. There's another question. And I think everyone has seen the rent cap failing in Berlin. I think all of us have said that this is legally not possible. And of course, the professional people at the end, we have been proven right. However, there are certain people in the city who would like to have another rent cap, which means that every rent needs to be lowered significantly. But I think we have seen in the past that this has even done the city not good. It hasn't helped the people in the city. And well, let's see what's going on in the future. But at the moment, no one is talking about the rent cap, at least not from the political parties who are in the democratic center and are really, making the decisions.
But rents are already regulated. I mean,
yeah. So what else do we have here? A good question is the rental table still liable? And it's a good question because the last rental table has been disputed by the landlords and by a lot of other people. So I think actually now the average Mietspiegel, as we say in German, is not actually, I think you might even win the case in front of a court because it's being heavily disputed. But we have seen these stories and these stories on the judge situation. So it's more like an academic question in real life, isn't it?
Well, I'm not a lawyer. I cannot speak legally or at least from that side. But I can tell that even if it is disputed and is not, qualifiziert, as we say, so it's not qualified, the Mietspiegel is a law-binding suggestion, either way, where rents are regulated according to this table. The thing is that if a landlord goes to a legal battle with the tenant because of the rent price and they end up into a court, then the court will take under consideration some kind of what happens in the area in terms of rents. And of course, this table, even if it's not qualified, is the basis on top of which we calculate everything. So yeah, maybe it's not qualified, it has been disputed, but it exists and it somehow plays some kind of role there. It needs to be considered.
A more proactive question is, how do I find a good tenant? A serious, good tenant who always pays rent on time and never cause a problem, Janis. How can you do that?
I don't know. Well, first of all, you offer a fair rent price. Let's start with that. If you offer a fair rent price, then you can have a lot of inquiries from tenants, a lot of applications. The more applications you have, you have a broad selection of people where you can choose from. Then you have to go to do a good background check as far as you can do it. We have also the data protection laws and everything, so it's not that easy anytime. And trust also your agent if you use one, or if you are renting it out yourself, then try to speak with the people. You can understand a lot of things about the people, but I'm afraid no one has the magic ball to see the future and understand how people work.
Yeah. So I think the first point of Janis is fantastic. You know, not to be too greedy in the first place, to get a fair rent, and try to be fair to the tenants, and then you of course can choose the right tenants. Another one is to rent out to companies, because companies are desperately looking for apartments for their employees, because they do not find employees if they don't find an apartment for them, especially when they come to the city, especially when they just started a new job. So if you have a big company is renting the property from you, that's another way. Usually the companies, the blue chip firms, the big companies registered on the German DAX, then you should get your rent. So that's another one, but also smaller companies are looking for apartments for their employees already. Another opportunity for you. Another one is to speak to the universities. Sometimes universities are looking apartments, searching for apartments for their students who are coming from other cities in Europe, spending 6 months, 12 months in Berlin. So that's another one. So there are a lot of opportunities to find good tenants. Then of course we have a question here from a lady. She's trying to rent out her apartment to a family, but she's looking how to do a proper rental contract on time, on a certain period of time. And of course, again, you can contact Janis. I think this is the best advice in a one-to-one appointment. And of course, you need a proper rental contract with them. And if you're not sure, and you also can ask the Landlord Association in Germany for that one.
I mean, I have a small comment here. If potential tenants try to find some stability, then they're not good tenants for limited time contracts. And to your question, whether it makes sense to rent out with a limited contract to a family, maybe not, unless they want it that way because they have a reason for that. That's a different thing.
So we have a company called Wunderflats. Just as an example, here's a question. Renting your apartment over Wunderflats. Is this legal? Are there any problems? Do we work with them? Do you have any experience with them?
We do work with them. We have we have an apartment at the moment listed there. They are more specialized into time limited rental contracts, furnished apartments. They reach clients such as big companies, for example, from abroad, who send employees here for a certain period of times. So implications with the law, they're always there. You just need to be aware of them. You just need to be aware of the risks that you may need to take. But what they're doing is completely legal. It's not they're not doing anything illegal.
Yeah, there you go. I hope that answered your question. It would be interesting for me to understand the limitations in short-term real estate residential properties rent, particularly as applicable to non-German residents. I'm not sure if I really understand your question.
Me neither.
But maybe you can rephrase your question and contact us again. But I think if I understand your question correctly, the limitations in short-term rental, I think we discussed that already. Of course, residential properties, there are also commercial properties. On commercial properties, there are completely different rules and regulations. So please make sure when you rent out that you know if you're renting out a residential or a commercial property. Big topic.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you rent out for non-Germans or Germans. It doesn't matter. They all have the same rules and regulations. It might be that foreigners who come to the city don't know all the regulations. That might be a difference, but the law is the same for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. The only thing I can add here is that the commercial units are more relaxed in terms of regulations from the law.
Yeah, no, it's easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Nick, do we have any questions in the chat which we haven't covered yet?
Yeah, we have some. The last question we had, which is quite interesting, is regarding the platform Tauschwohnung, where you can switch your apartments. What are your thoughts about that?
Okay. So I just rephrase the question because Nick has no microphone. So there's a property portal where you can change apartments. So you basically offer your apartment in exchange for a different apartment. So
Swap apartment.
Swap. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Do you have any experience with that, Yannis?
Not through the company. I mean, how they operate is pretty simple. As you said, you have an apartment, you're looking for something different, bigger, smaller, depending on what you're looking for. And you use your apartment, what you have at the moment, to offer it to someone who may have something that will be interesting for you. And if for any reason you manage to find this person, then you try to change basically the contracts and move to its other apartments. I'm not sure if it is as easy and as great as it sounds, because you and him will need to have the confirmation from the owners, from the landlords, so from the landlords, and it may not be that simple. But it exists. There are people who did that and they were profited from that. And yeah, feel free to try it if you want to, and if you are lucky for that.
Yeah. I would just, Nick, are there any further questions? Yeah? Oh, okay. Okay, sorry.
What's the maximum length for short-term rental contracts?
So just rephrase the question. What is the maximum length for short-term rental contracts?
So anything more than 3 months, not to fall under the Airbnb category, maximum is 12 months. Anything that's more than 12 months can be anytime disputed and turn automatically into an unlimited contract.
More questions?
Yeah, another one. I have a 70 square meter apartment in Berlin with 3 rooms. Can I rent it out to 6 people, or what's the maximum amount of people I can put in an apartment?
Okay, I just rephrased that question. It's a 60 square meter,
70.
70 square meter,
Okay.
three room apartment.
Yeah.
And someone's asking if he can rent it out to 6 people.
Yeah, and how much they can charge.
And how much they can charge. That's a great question. I think you will be recorded as one of the greedy landlord. Sorry to say, this is not fair. But again, Yannis, maybe you want to answer the question.
I mean, there is no limitation on how many tenants an apartment can have.
No, there is limitation. There is. You cannot put too many in because the room needs to be big enough for there's minimum standards.
Yeah, but who is going to check if the tenant? I mean, so the question is, from which side comes this question? If it comes from the landlord's side, whether he's able to find 6 completely different tenants, then probably the answer is no. It would be a lot more complicated, and you will have more trouble than you can think of now. But if it is a family with six people for some reason, and they want to move in, then of course you do not have a limitation on the people.
There are certain, just to completely right, Yannis. It always depends what is the situation. But if you put in 6 people who don't know each other, that's how I understood the question.
Yeah.
Maybe it's wrong, but if it's a family, that's a completely different story. But the apartment has to fit the amount of people, of course, and there are certain rules and regulations, of course. If it's too small, if there are not enough bedrooms, not enough other space for people, then of course you can't do that. Yeah. But legally speaking, it's sort of a gray area, and there are companies out there who do rent out small apartments for a lot of people. But like I said, that's not our expertise, and we don't really do that. Yeah.
And the price has nothing to do with how many people will live there. The cost, though, the additional costs, heating and common costs, for example, can be adjusted in regards of how many people will live there. because these are most of them are consumption costs. So you can charge more on costs, but in the end of the day, these are costs that you will have to pay afterwards.
Okay, I hope we can answer your question, Nick. Some more?
Keep on going.
We keep on going.
Another question, but this is more for a purchase. If I want to claim self-usage,
Yeah.
you ask, you always get the response that there's a 10-year period. What is the actual period until I can claim self-usage if I rent an apartment?
Okay, so self-usage. If you're a landlord, sorry, not a landlord, if you are a property buyer or potential buyer, and you are buying a tenanted apartment, we have this so-called urban legend. Urban legend says the tenants are protected by 10 years. And that's of course wrong. It's not always a 10-year period. You always have to check before you buy the property, does the tenant has a 10-year protection clause or doesn't he? There are a lot of apartments you can buy with a 10-year protection, but there are also a lot of them who do not have that 10-year protection period. So please contact your broker, your real estate agent who has offered you that apartment. Please speak also to this seller, and in any topic, always consult a property lawyer, a real estate lawyer who will confirm that to you. Yeah. So a 10-year protection period is only in certain apartments, not in all of them. So without knowing the concrete case, I can't give you a response on that. So please contact us directly and we can check together with you the rental contract and of course the declaration of division, which you need if you buy that apartment. Yeah. Nick, further questions?
Yeah, this is a question, but I don't think we can answer it because it's how can I, as a foreigner, get the permission to do Airbnb in Germany? But we don't do Airbnb, so I don't know if you want to answer that.
Yeah, I mean, Janis.
You need to apply to the city for the permission.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there is a list of check boxes that you need to check. Whether you will get it or not, I'm afraid I'm not the responsible person to say.
No, I think Airbnb is a bit of a difficult one. Thank you, Nick, for asking, for sharing that. I think Airbnb, the main people who are renting out on Airbnb are not landlords, actually they're tenants. So if they don't use the apartment, I had cases here on the desk where we had tenants who were renting out an apartment and they went away for a couple of months. They're renting out the apartment on Airbnb. They basically used the money for themselves, and the landlord, the real landlord, just got the 6, 7, 8 euros rent a month. So most people who are renting out apartments on Airbnb are actually tenants, and it's quite interesting to see that if the tenant is subletting the apartment, the legal topics for the tenant subletting the apartment are much weaker than if the landlord is renting to the tenant directly. So it's a bit of a gray area, which we have discussed a few times already in the political arena, but sadly this is not really regulated. Yeah. Okay, Nick, next question.
Yeah, do you have any experiences with Connie?
Experience with Connie?
Yeah, we do.
So
absolutely.
for all these guys, just a question, Connie is a startup, I think? Legal tech up, legal prop tech something?
I don't know if they're a startup anymore. I mean, they should have good business the past few years. I think the whole thing really started to go well for them after the Mietendeckel.
The rent cap?
The rent cap, where all the landlords had to inform their tenants about the regulations, and that triggered a lot of people to check more on the laws, to search more what is going on. And I think the lawyers from Connie, they had a very clever business decision. They made a very clever business decision there to tell their tenants or their clients to forget about the rent cap and try to lower the rents with the existing rental regulations. And yeah, with the past few years, we have some experience. We had cases which are still ongoing, and people are trying to lower their rents. In some cases, they have every right to do so. In other, maybe not so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Nick, another one?
Yeah, a lot of.
Okay, I try to rephrase the question.
Yeah.
So what opportunities do we have as a landlord to increase the rent?
Okay. First of all, we need to start from what kind of rental agreement you have there, and what kind of property. If it is a new build and you have an existing tenant, so probably you already have a clause into the contract, either to increase every year according to the rent index table, or you have a pre-arranged rent increase in place of 2, 3, 4% every year. Everything is arranged through the contract. If we are talking about existing contracts that are older, then I'm afraid, and you do not have any specific clause there regulating the increases, which you probably will not have, then I'm afraid you need to, you are allowed to do whatever the law dictates, and that's it. In a 3 years period, not more than 15%, as long as the rent is very low, lower than the rent cap, the Mietpreisbremse, so the rent regulation dictates. There are certain options you can, certain things you can do to increase that. Every case is different, is not that easy to answer. In general, is maximum 50% in a time period of 3 years.
15%.
15% in a time period of 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay, I think the last question, because some of them replied about it. As an investor, is it advisable to invest in a housing property which is 80 to 90 years old for self-use?
Yeah, of course it's possible. And it's clever if the price is correct. Yeah. Maybe just rephrase the question. So does it make sense to buy an 80 to 90 year old apartment or house?
Yeah, housing property.
Housing property, okay. Yeah, if it's an apartment or house, just of course it makes sense. There are 3 things you need to check. First of all, you need to go there with a structural surveyor, as we would say. Of course, we can give you the right contact details of the structural surveyors, architects, experts who will check the condition of the house. Second, we need to check what kind of, if the apartment is vacant or tenanted, what is the rental income, what kind of contract do you have. Of course, today we have a rental webinar, so that's why that might be a big one. And the third one is, of course, the price. Is the price okay compared to the rental income, if it's a rental apartment? And if it's not a rental, if you want to live there yourself, always do the mathematics and check how much you need to invest to bring it up to standards and how much you can collect on rental income in case you decide to live somewhere else. Yeah. So again, that's in one. You can book an appointment on blacklabel-properties.com with one of my colleagues or with myself, and we can crunch the numbers a little bit together on that one. Yeah. Perfect. Janis, 1 hour we had today.
Okay.
I think even a little bit more because we had a lot of questions. I think we had the record session today with a lot of people in the chat. Nick, how many people we had in the chat today? What was the peak?
40 and 60.
Between 40 and 60. That's not too bad, is it?
Always.
Okay. Is it the record session today?
Kind of like, yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the.
It's a record,
yeah, I think so. Yeah. So that's fantastic. And if you have any questions, please contact Janis under blacklabelpropertymanagement.com or book an appointment or book a free consultation under blacklabel-properties.com. Thank you for watching tonight. Have a nice evening.
Sehr gut.
Sind wir alle raus?
Ja.
Top. Ich mache das Outro nochmal neu.
Ja.
Top.
Also ich fand das Outro eigentlich, ich finde das mal nicht schlecht, weil du es mit reinsetzt. Aber du kannst natürlich sagen, dann findest du hier nochmal die Kontaktdetails und sowas.
Habe ich doch gerade gesagt.
Ja, ich meine, könntest du dann nochmal länger strecken. Eigentlich kannst du es auch so lassen. Ich brauche immer nur ein Intro, wo du ein bisschen auf das eingehst.
Okay, dann mache ich das Intro.
Weil das Outro können wir nicht so lassen, das ist echt gut.
Okay.
Oder also das wird für YouTube, oder?
Ja.
Genau.
Oder kannst du sagen, unter in der Description findet ihr die Kontaktdaten?
Genau.
Dann mache ich kurz das Intro nochmal.
Ja.
Jetzt haben wir die ganzen Gläser ausgetrungen. Sind böse, egal.
Mein habe ich ein bisschen.
Dann stellen wir das hier weg.
Die wollten die ganze Zeit nur wissen, wie können sie bescheißen. Wie viele Leute kennen die eigentlich?
Das ist unfassbar.
Oder wie viel Geld kann ich als Vermieter verdienen? Ja.
Aber war die Antwort greedy Landlord, ne? Gieriger Landlord.
Ja,
Meisten davon sind so.
Zwischenzeitlich kam wirklich eine Frage, die ging die ganze Zeit nacheinander. Da habe ich nur geguckt, okay, viel zu langer Text, keine Chance, lese ich nicht durch.
Okay, dann machen wir jetzt das Intro schnell.